we'll go ahead and get started. And I've been asked to be the moderator, and if you looked at your paper, my name's actually out there as, possible presenter. But I'm faculty with Maria Wright, and Maria's here today to present a project on what she did while she was in the undergraduate program and how she used Neuman to, her title is there, how she uses it to energize teacher and student learning outcomes. So without further ado, I would just like to say, give her your attention and then save your questions and give her a lot. Go, Maria.
Hi, thank you. My name's Maria. I come from Purdue University in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Just for the sake of not getting tongue-tied while I'm speaking, I'm going to shorten that to IPFW. So if I say IPFW, you know what I'm talking about. The outcomes. I'm going to discuss how I applied the Neuman systems model with actually 3 projects that I did in my senior year of the undergraduate program. How I incorporated technology to energize that process. And then we're going to talk a little bit about math anxiety as it applies to nursing students and nurses. So what I did was I incorporated the Neuman systems model with informatics, various forms of it, and evidence-based teaching in order to energize that educational process. And it was an energizing process not only for the diverse groups of students that I was teaching, but also for myself too. So, like I said, I have 3 projects I want to tell you about, and I'm going to move through these kind of quickly. If you guys want to stay after the half hour, I would love, love, love to go into them a little more deeply with you. First project was a health education video that I did on the topic of menstruation. I did this as a requirement for an undergraduate informatics course. My audience was 4th grade girls in an elementary school. These are pre-adolescents that are about 9 or 10 years old, in which they're prepubescent. Their puberty is just starting for them, so their bodies are starting to change. They need that information in order to not be so stressed out that their period's coming. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I remember personally from that age group, from that when I was that age, and it stuck with me, and I've been stressed out ever since about it, which is my mother, my dear mother, who I love, bringing out a sanitary pad with a belt, like from the 50s. No? Nobody knows what that is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not telling you.
Scarred for life, I was. So what do you think priority stressors are for that age group? Anybody have any ideas? Maybe some fear of embarrassment?
Can I tell you what I told my little cousin?
Please.
I said, 1 week out of the year, out of the month, 12 months a year, this many days. In our life, we're going to lose that many days in our life because of what's coming.
Yeah, talk about instilling fear in somebody.
No, that was us. We were the 9 and 10 years old.
Oh.
We were calculating how much of our life we were going to lose. Because we thought we'd have to stay home. Okay.
So I figured out the priority stressors for this age group would be the fear and anxiety of what's coming if they hadn't started already. When is it going to start? What's going to happen? What do I do when it starts? And a knowledge deficit related to all of that. So I used this project as primary prevention, as intervention, assuming that these 9 and 10-year-olds had not gotten their period yet. The age range of when that starts is from age 9 to 17. So hopefully with this video I was hitting them before they got their period. I did research on the topic. I did research on how to effectively educate this age group. I developed a storyboard with a script that went with it. I shot the video. I should go backward and explain that this for this course, it could have either been a group project or an individual project, and I chose to do it individually. So I did pretty much everything. I took photographs, I designed a logo, and then I used software called Adobe Premiere to put it all together. So I have to show off just a couple pictures from the video because I don't have time to show the whole thing. I recruited my son's girlfriend, Megan, to be the star of my movie. I did not want to be in it. I lovingly call this project my period movie. So I chose her to be the star of my period movie, but there was a reason for it because the little girls look up to somebody like this as a role model before they would me. I did text overlays to reinforce what was said with my voiceover. There's the logo that I designed. I took photos, so I was explaining what the different products were and such. And then I incorporated some community resource. So this is a website that the government puts out that little girls can go to get more information. Project number 2 was a teaching project on synthetic drugs. Does anybody know what I mean by synthetic drugs? What might be included in that?
Spice.
What is spice?
It's potpourri that people smoke, basically.
Like you smell it in your bathroom? Ecstasy? No, not quite. It's a synthetic form of marijuana. It might be known as spice or K2. So it is a chemically derived synthetic marijuana. Bath salts, has anybody heard of that? That's included in this. So this was done as a teaching project for a community and public health nursing course in the undergraduate program. So I was assigned, one of my clinical locations was at a middle school. I had to do a teaching project as part of this clinical, and I consulted with the nurse, the school nurse who I was assigned to be with, and she said, oh, I don't do any teaching, so I had to figure out another way of how I was going to do that, pick a topic, talk to the health teacher, and she said she was just getting into a drug and alcohol unit. I said, tell me you touch on synthetic drugs. I'd seen things in my psych nursing course that were scary, and it's prevalent in our community as well as various places throughout the United States. So I knew it was relevant, and she was not going to teach on it. So she invited me to come into each of her 8th grade health classes. So that 8th grade students are at a middle school, about 13 or 14 years old, the year before they go to high school. They had to take this health class, and so I got to teach in 8 health classes. Each health class was composed of either all males or all females. So if you can get a picture in your mind of a group of 8th grade girls as opposed to a group of 8th grade boys, completely different class dynamic, group dynamic. The way that I was able to apply the Neuman systems model for this project, I assumed they had a knowledge deficit about this, and I'm going to come back to that in a minute. Along with that, that age group comes peer pressure, especially going into high school, developmental changes as they're going into adolescence. So I went at this as a primary prevention as intervention, and I'm going to show you how it plays a little bit into secondary for a few of the students. So like I said, I collaborated with the health teacher and the school nurse. I identified the need. I developed a Prezi, and I implemented it for 223 8th graders. I played along with the dynamics of each of those groups, so I had leading discussions throughout the teaching project as well as a survey at the end. This is a picture of me delivering the Prezi. And I not only touched on the physiological dangers of these drugs, but we talked about you know, peer pressure as it applies to drug use, the legality of it, all sorts of those different domains I was able to touch on with my Prezi, not just the physiological. So the survey that I gave at the end, I wanted to know who had heard about these drugs before the presentation, who knew somebody who had tried one of the drugs, who knew somebody who had regularly done one of the drugs, who had been offered it. Remember, we're talking about 8th graders here. And then to evaluate the effectiveness of my teaching, I asked them if they could name a side effect and a resource, because I gave community resources along with my teaching, because I wanted them to have that available just in case they knew of somebody who regularly did one of these drugs, or if they themselves had a problem or if a family member did. So I wanted to have that available. So here comes the interesting part. Remember, keep in mind, the teacher was not going to touch on this at all. And over 83% of the 223 8th graders had already knew about these drugs a little bit. 30% knew somebody who had tried it. I didn't get any more specific than somebody who had tried it, so it could have been a family member, a fellow student, an older sibling. We didn't get more specific than that. 15% knew somebody who regularly did one of these drugs. And 6.3 had already been offered it. This is at the 8th grade level. When I think, you know, kind of that risky behavior as far as, you know, alcohol and drugs, cigarettes, things like that, I think of it as a high school thing. Like, I think 8th grade, maybe it was me being a good girl in middle school, but, you know, I was shocked by this. And when I talked to some of the school administrators, you know, they're like, oh no, we don't have, that's not an issue in our school. And like these last two showed the effectiveness of my teaching, because they were almost all were able to name a side effect and a resource.